You can take a photo that looks like this and turn it into something that looks like this. And all of that using the free applications that you can find on Play Store or any other app store that you get your apps from. And you can do them on your phone. We're talking editing your smartphone photos today. So let's go. What is up, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. If you're new to the channel, welcome. Happy to have you here. It's been a while since I put out the last video. Actually, I shot this video earlier, and then when I started to edit it, I didn't like it, so I scrapped the entire thing, and I'm doing it again. So yeah, I just want to make the best videos possible. So last video, we talked about taking epic photos with your phone, and in this video, we're gonna be talking about editing those photos to make it look more epic, if that makes sense. Okay, so we're gonna look at the things that we can do to get the best looking photos, and then I'm gonna show you how I apply those things to my photos to make my photos look nice and professional, if you will. Oh, and I'm not saying that this is the way to edit your photos or this is the way that you should do your photos. I'm just showing you how I edit my photos to help you out. Before we start, let me give you all of the apps that we are gonna be looking at in this video. We're gonna be looking at Lightroom, lens distortion, and PicsArt. We're gonna be using Lightroom for basically everything, for adjusting your light and adjusting your color and basically editing your photo. But we're also gonna be using lens distortion and PicsArt to add some elements to your pictures. Elements like lens flares and light hits and smoke or fog or whatever you want to add to your pictures. We're going to be using lens distortion and PicsArt for those things. All of these apps are free. You can get the free version on Play Store or anywhere else you get your apps from. You can also pay for these apps to get some extra features, and if you want to get rid of the ads in the app, you can pay on a subscription basis, and you can get the paid version. But if you're like me and you're broke, yeah, the free version is just gonna be fine. You'll be fine just with the free version. So let's get into it. Let's get the boring theory part out of the way. We're gonna be splitting it up into 3 important steps. Step 1 is gonna be a correction. Step 2 is gonna be your color grading. And step 3 is gonna be adding style or stylizing your photos to look a specific kind of way. So let's talk about correction. Correction is just fixing your photos. When you have a messed up looking photo, you can still fix it with editing. Correcting your photos to look natural and properly exposed is one of the key things that you have to do to get your photos looking nice and professional. We're gonna be correcting 2 things. We're gonna be correcting light and we're gonna be correcting color. Sometimes your photos are a little bit dark, that is underexposed, or sometimes your photos may be a little too bright. Overexposed is what you'd call it. Both of those things are not good. You want your photo to be properly exposed, like you want to have a balanced exposure throughout the image. The light just has to look natural and it has to look nice. If it's underexposed, you can bring the light up, and if it's overexposed, you can bring it down. It's as simple as that. And secondly, we have to balance our colors. We have to make sure our white balance, tint, and saturation are on point. Sometimes your photos may look a little too yellow, or sometimes it may look a little too blue, but you can fix that easily by adjusting your white balance. And if your photo looks a little dull or boring or maybe lacks that pop of color, you can bring up the saturation to fix that. But you have to be careful with it, because if you overdo the saturation, your photo is gonna look like a toddler sketchbook, so you don't want that to happen to your photos. Okay, so let's get to the fun stuff. Color grading. This is where you can get creative and make the photo look unique to your style. You can change individual colors to whatever color you want them to look like, and you can add colors to specific parts of the image. You can go crazy with it. You can do whatever you want. You can add colors to basically any parts of your image. But a key thing to keep in mind when color grading, when your picture as a person or any number of people in the frame, is that you have to keep your skin tones looking natural. You can go crazy with the rest of the image, but if your skin tones don't look natural and if they look weird, your entire photo is gonna look weird. Step number 3 is stylizing your photo. This is where you can add things to your photo and make them have a specific look. You can add things like lens flares, light hits, smoke, fog, or even film grain and film textures and stuff, and make your photo look unique. you can add anything you want. And this is where we use lens distortion and Pixar. My personal favorite is lens distortion. It is a really simple app. It has all of the lens flares and light hits and smoke and fog effects, and it has all of those things, and it's really simple. You can be done with your photo in like no time. So that is why I like it, because it is really easy to use. Okay, so now that we got the fundamentals out of the way, let me show you a photo. We're gonna be using Lightroom, like I said, for all of our color and our light and exposure things. So the way that Lightroom is laid up is all of the tabs are laid out in a sequential manner, and you can pretty much edit your photo in that same sequence. So if I open the light tab here, you can see that I've adjusted the highlights and the shadows and a little bit of the blacks. If you can see here, the photo is a little underexposed, so that is why I brought up the shadows and a little bit of the highlights and the whites, and I crushed a little bit of the blacks. So all of these sliders affect specific parts of the image. There's an exposure slider right at the top. You don't want to change your exposure right away, because if you mess with the exposure, it affects all of your shadows, highlights, blacks and whites, and it changes everything. So you don't want that to happen. You want control over the entire image. That is why it is always good to adjust your exposure with the highlights, shadows, whites and blacks sliders. So that is why I do it that way. And after I fix the light, and the next tab is the color. So if you open up the color, you can see that I've brought the saturation down a little bit, because I don't know why I did it, honestly, but I did it. So this is where you fix your color. If your saturation is a little too much, or if there is very little saturation, you can bring it up or bring it down, and you can warm it up. You can bring the temperature, and you can change the tint if you want to. One thing that I like to do for my colors is actually in the light tab. So if I come back to the light tab and open up the curve section, you can see that I've made like a little S curve on all of the channels. This is a classic trick that all of the photographers, everybody that I follow, do. So adding this slight S curve gives that nice contrasty punch to your pictures, and I like doing it to basically all of my photos. So I do a little subtle S curve on all of my photos, and if you make an S curve on all of the individual channels, it is like adding colors to specific regions and removing colors from specific regions. So it is a lot to get into. I don't think I'm gonna get into all of that in this video, because it's gonna be very long. But if you're interested, let me know. I'll make a separate video going about the S curves and all of the other things that I do to my photos. The part where it gets really exciting is the mix tab on the right side of the color tab. So as you can see, there are like a bunch of different colors, and there's like 3 sliders. This is called the hue, saturation and luminance tab. So what it does is, if you pick a specific color, you can change the hue of that color, and you can change the saturation of that color to basically whatever you want it to look like. So you can do that with all of the individual colors. So this is what I meant by you can change individual colors to make them look like whatever color you want to. As you can see, I've adjusted the reds to look a little bit more orange. I didn't change the hue of the oranges. I increased the saturation and brought down the luminance, and I just made little changes to all of the color channels. I hate green grass. I hate it when grass looks really green. I don't know. It just doesn't look nice. So I either change it to look like something like an yellowish green, or like maybe a greenish orange or something, but I just don't want it looking green. So as you can see, I've done it to this picture also. I think it looks nice. And the color grading tab, there are like 3 specific parts of your image. Those are your shadows, highlights and your midtones. Your shadows represent the darkest parts of your image. Your highlights represent the brightest parts of the image, and your midtones represent everything in between. So if you want to add colors to those specific regions, you can do it with this color grading tab. As you can see, I've added a little blue tint to the shadows, and I've added some oranges to the midtones and a little bit of green to the highlights. So you can do as you please. You can add any color to any specific part of your photo. So you can do that to get a specific look. That is everything that I did with color. And the next tab that we're going to look at is effects. you can add film grain in Lightroom. So I added film grain to this photo. As you can see, I kind of went crazy with it. And I've also added like a little bit of a vignette. So a vignette is when you have darken the edges of an image to like pull focus to the center of the image. So you can add a vignette, and as you can see, I've feathered the vignette out all the way to the 100% so that it doesn't look as harsh. If you pull it back, you can see that it looks really harsh. So that is why I feathered it out all the way to 100%. So I added that. So that is everything I did to this photo in Lightroom. And there's one more thing that I did to the final version of this photo. If you can see here, there's the sun, and the sun has this weird like edge or a border around it, and it looks kind of odd. It doesn't look very odd, but it looks kind of odd. So I opened up lens distortion. I just grabbed a light hit and placed it exactly where the sun was, and I covered it up. So now you don't see that harsh edge of the sun, and it looks way nicer and it looks a little bit smoother, and I think it kind of levels up your picture. So it's little things like these that you improve and change to your picture to make it look really nice. So there you go. Those are the things that I do to get my photos looking nice and professional or epic or whatever you want to call it. I've been learning these things and practicing these things for over 4 years now, and I wanted to help you guys out. That is why I make these videos. If you haven't watched the part 1 of this video, I'll leave the link in the description below. Hope you guys liked the video. Hope you guys found it informative and got something out of it. If you did, hit that like button and definitely subscribe to catch up on future videos, and leave a comment. Let me know what you guys think about the video. Let me know the things that you liked, the things that you didn't like, maybe not. And if you have video ideas that you want me to make videos on, leave those in the comment too. I'll definitely be checking those out. And yeah, that is it. That is it for this video. I'll see you again in the next one. Bye. Entire photo is gonna look weird. I just sprayed all over like it's the